But now we want to move on to our first full segment with the story of puppy dog eyes, and the idea that dogs have developed, have evolved, in fact, an expressive face uh, to better communicate with humans and also to be accepted by humans. And I have to say, if anyone out there owns a terrier, as we do, and I know you do as well,
Yes.
the terriers have the eyebrows as well. They can look quizzical. They can do all sorts of things with their faces that very much appeals to the human mind. But I wonder to what extent this actually communicates what they're thinking and feeling, as opposed to simply makes them appealing to people. Now I suppose maybe it's worthwhile coming back at that just in a moment. Because so first of all, it's worthwhile just explaining the mechanism here is one of selection. So people breed dogs or bred wolves initially that were more friendly, that were less likely to compete with them for food, but also wolves that were more expressive, that were more anthropomorphized in that sense. That's the theory behind how this has happened. But do you think that they're actually conveying the same emotion that we think they are when they're expressing?
I I really don't know about this because dogs are so bound up in our cultural lives and our personal lives. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who has a dog knows how much it becomes a part of your life, and we do. However much we say we don't, almost all of us anthropomorphize our dogs to a certain degree. Our dog's
Mm.
always the brightest, most intelligent dog on the planet, and even when they're the most stupid creatures
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
imaginable in
Mm-hmm.
some respects. And so when you get a story like this, you think, well, actually, yeah, this makes complete sense in terms of the relationship that we've built up with dogs, particularly since we've moved away from having, by and large, even working breeds. Now longer, very few of them actually work. Most of them are domesticated to a much higher degree than they would have been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
How much of this is a chicken and egg situation? I think it's an interesting question.
It is hard to say because it seems to be very subtle in so much as
Mm.
the when you compare the anatomy of dogs to the anatomy of wolves, actually the eyes are very specifically one of the most different parts of the two species,
Yeah,
and whether I can't imagine, well, not even I can't imagine it. It's also expressed in the research that people are unlikely to have prioritized what the dog's eyes look like when it
yeah.
comes to their ability to help in other ways, as I've already laid out, hunting and this kind of thing. But it appears that it would have had an effect on how well they were received by their human masters, if not how well they're able to actually communicate with you.
Yeah.
Um, Interestingly, the research hopes next to identify and examine a wider variety of dog breeds, including more ancient breeds and dogs that live on the streets or independent of humans
Yeah.
in the domestic setting, to
That
understand how
exactly.
these muscles have changed and how they continue to change. This kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, and we should name check the scientists involved, including Professor Bridget Waller, who's the
Mm.
director of the Centre for Comparative and Evolutionary Psychology at the University of Portsmouth. But what we're talking about is a group of muscles called the levator anguli oculi medialis, or LAOM, thankfully.
Uh huh.
Um, and
Leum.
Laom, yes. What's interesting, if you look at six dogs that were looked at anatomically during the course of the research, and I should have to stress, they say that no dogs were killed or harmed in the course of this research. But of six dogs that they actually looked at the structure of the eyes, it's a Chihuahua, a Labrador, a Bloodhound, a German Shepherd, a Siberian Husky, and then a mongrel, of the kind of dog that Indian Loki are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's quite a range. You have a Chihuahua, which is a miniature dog.
But also similar such dogs were also bred as food, for example, amongst the Inca.
Indeed,
So again, that has an implication in terms of, do you really want your food to be expressive? There's an
exactly.
interesting question there. But anyway, go on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but and then we have three three working breeds, so a Labrador, a Bloodhound, and a German Shepherd, both relatively highly developed breeds with long pedigrees going back.
Trainable as well, and very, very, very much accustomed to human interaction. Yeah.
But that's right. And then we have a Siberian Husky, which is probably one of the closest we would think to the ancestral wolf, in terms of certainly in terms of its look, and size and strength and so on. And then a mongrel, which could be a bit of everything. The famous Heinz 57 different varieties dog. So and they all of those had this developed LAOM muscle.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, so I mean, so the National Geographic article that I'm looking at here goes on to have 10 fun pictures of dogs. And but in that sense,
it's just another excuse to publish pictures of cute dogs on the internet, basically, isn't it?
And indeed, it's going to be an excuse to put dogs on the thumbnail for this segment of the watching group. But I think that is important in so much as this is interesting. People like looking at dogs, and they like it when dogs look at them. And in that
certainly
sense,
in Western culture, I think we have to accept. Other cultures, the dog doesn't have the same place.
No, you're right. Yes, yeah, and in some places, either the idea of a pet as a dog is, a dog as a pet is just ridiculous and filthy. In other cases, dogs are possibly even edible. Depends on the context. Or feared, indeed. Yes, yeah, exactly. You can have wild dogs running amok, but the point is that in many contexts, dogs, and one of the reasons why dogs have this feature is that we seemingly have become enamored with looking at them as much as they respond to our attention as well. So it also makes it clear here that dogs' expressions change when they know that they have your attention, which is interesting. They respond to that, and so I think it's quite telling that this is an excuse, as you say, to put in a series of fun pictures of dogs. Now that says an awful lot about us, and and actually, as is hinted here in the article, humans and dogs have been interacting and evolving together over the past 20,000 years, and that's about 10% of humans' time on this planet, at least. If not,
exactly.
Yeah, between I don't know, 7 and 10%. So it's a significant amount of interaction, and so in that sense, I think this is an interesting bit of research. But also, we tagged into this story as well. Again, I said this was a very busy month for Watching Brief. A new story coming out of Siberia, where the 40,000-year-old severed wolf's head has been found. The would be a very if there was an iconic wolf's head that we all knew about, and we found it. No, a wolf's head has been found in an astonishing state of preservation, and it's going to be interesting to see how the features, for example, the skull, the snout, the nose, how these features measure up against, for example, modern wolves and modern dogs. It looks to have a very distinct profile, shall we say? Does it not?
Yes. Yeah. It's a very striking find. I mean, these finds in the permafrost in Siberia in northeast Russia are often remarkable. Recently, we've not just had this wolf; we've had a horse, haven't we, as well, and various other. Other creatures turn up, and the article we're looking at here from Life Science also alludes to a wolf puppy that was 50,000 years old, estimated, and came from Canada. So that we're beginning to get the primary data to look at these ancestral dogs, look at their DNA, and look at their structures. Their anatomical structures, and look at evolution in action effectively, and look at what happens when human beings intervene in the natural process of evolution, which is obviously what selective breeding of dogs is.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'll just sort of also make I'll add on to that in so much as I've also heard it said by biologists, but also I have some members of the family who are very much into their dogs. They go to dog shows and this kind of thing. There would have been an element of choice as well from the perspective of the dog. Now that's not to say that the dog won't come on, let's fundamentally change our direction as a species, but you would have had to have wolves that would have had very specific especially brain chemistries. So a wolf that was aggressive enough to be useful for hunting, but wasn't so aggressive that it couldn't share with you, and a
Yes.
wolf that had the ability to put down that fight or flight instinct initially when meeting what is another omnivore predator, essentially,
Yeah.
and actually take time to get to hang around with them and get to know them. And some of this actually, funnily enough, a couple of months ago, you may recall, was part of the subject of the movie Alpha that I looked at and recommended.
Yes.
And that set of circumstances, I think we do the wolf and the dog a disservice if we say it was just the people who selected them. I think also there was a curiosity there from the creature's perspective that presumably a wolf not dissimilar to this 40,000-year-old example had, and they followed their own instincts possibly to cohabit.
That's true, and I think also we should avoid the tendency or the desire maybe to think that the past relationship with the dog was similar to the one that we have now. And I use the modern example here of a working husky team, which doesn't come and sit down by the campfire for a cuddle and snacks. They're left out in the snow, and their food's thrown to them, and they're not. They don't have close interaction with humans, except when the human has harnessed them and is driving them.
Yeah, well, and actually, I can't remember when it was now, but it was at some point in the past few years there was the discovery again, actually in Siberia, of a similar, dog-like wolves from about 100,000 years ago. So it looks as though there had been a previous event where wolves and people came together. Then we hit the LGM, the last glacial maximum, and suddenly dogs became too much of a hassle. Too much. There was another mouth to feed. They're in that sense again. They're not beloved pets. They are partners. And at that point, we went our separate ways for a few thousand years. Well, a few tens of thousands of years, and then came back together again around 20,000 years ago. So that's interesting as well. This idea of there being a not to say an easy calculation, but a calculation that sort of comes down to cost benefit in that sense, and presumably from the animal's perspective as well. If they're not being fed, then they're gonna leave, interesting. Okay.
Well, I think we just look forward to the data coming out on this. The head is actually being examined. The DNA work is being done by the Swedish Museum of Natural History. So we'll look forward to seeing what they come up with.
Yeah, no, absolutely.